Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So I have something very exciting here, and it's very tiny also, but it's really cool what it is. So I was contacted by the Sterling Kits company, sterlingkits.com. They build miniature engine kits, and they sell them on their website, sterlingkits.com. And they asked me if I'd be interested in assembling one of their kits. I said, yeah, I'd really like to do it. I've always wanted to try one of these. And they do something really cool once you get them put together. They actually run. And it's amazing that these small engines actually run. So they have everything from aviation engines up to automobile engines. And they sent me a hit and miss engine. They seen my video on the John Deere hit and miss engine that my dad and I were playing with a couple of winters ago. That hit and miss engine belonged to my grandpa. He used it to pump water out of his basement at their house when my dad was a kid. And Dad and I inherited it, and we need to restore it. So that is a John Deere hit and miss. And this is a retro engine. It's the HM-01 4-stroke horizontal hit and miss gas engine. And this is the instructions. So very easy to understand, picture by picture instructions. This is the first thing I noticed right away, that they were very nice instructions. I really liked them. So got instructions. We've got our engine. It is very well packaged in foam, so nothing can get tore up. It all sits in these nice foam pieces. Everything is CNC machined, and the machining work is just absolutely beautiful. So we'll get this all out. I've got these silicone trays that I'm going to go ahead and lay everything out on so that it's easy to keep everything together. So this is our main engine block. Really nicely machined. And it's got some weight to it. It's definitely something there. And we have our bags of other small parts. We have our crankshaft. Everything is bagged very nicely. These kits are very nice. We have our pull string for our starter. We'll get all this laid out. That's it for this box. And they also sent the optional wooden frame for the hit and miss to sit on, and the brass fuel tank. And that brass fuel tank is see-through. It's got a sight glass so you can see your fuel in it. Now this will run on kerosene, gas, and lighter fluid, and we'll go over that in the book when we get to that. They also sent the ignition and a little spark plug for it. And this is some more of the ignition system right here, and a fuel line and some screws. We also have a neat little wooden box for the ignition system. It's all very nicely done. Really neat. This looks like it is just a downsize of the real thing. So this will be the smallest engine I have ever assembled. We're used to seeing in our shop, we're used to seeing like the D342 Cat Diesel and the D8H Dozer, 5.9 Cumminses, the big John Deere motors and the big tractors, the 2-cylinder John Deere engines, but we've never assembled anything this small. So this one's going to be fun. So let's get started on it. Well, let's get everything laid out. Get everything out of our bags, laid out on our silicone tray. We'll set the bigger stuff over here that we don't need right now. These are just springs. We got our actual little engine head, which is really cool because it's got valve springs and all in there. working valve springs. Definitely thought out when they made these kits. We have our carburetor basically. We have some brass bearings, it looks like. We have some set screws. We have some little steel balls, machine screws. Everything's marked out really nice. These are the base screws. We won't need those till later. We've got our 2x6 screws, our M2 by 5/16 screws, visual oil cup. Looks like a gauge there. So everything's definitely marked out. That is nice. So I'm gonna get all this out. Our crankshaft. So I already got brass gear pressed on it. Really neat. Got our piston and rod. It's got a brass bearing in there. Screws are already in there. It looks like just using an O-ring for a ring. We'll set that over there for now. So let me get all this out and we'll start our assembly on our little engine. So we're going to go ahead and put our timing gear on. I am going to put a little bit of lube on that. I'm going to use Ultra Slick engine assembly lube from Permatex. Got some of this off Amazon. Just going to use a Q-tip here and just get a little bit out. And I'm going to put it right on where that gear is going to spin on the shaft there. Just like so. Just to prevent dry starts. So now we're going to put that in our gear. Brass gear here. And then we are going to insert that into our casting of our engine block here with a flat spot up. Gotta get it just right. Just like so. Make sure our flat spot is up. And you will need a set of precision screwdrivers to do this with. Tighten that up. I think we got a cricket here in the shop office. Alright, so we got that on. We're good there. So now we'll move to our next step. And looks like our next step is to actually put the cylinder together. So let's get started on that. So we'll need our piston and rod here. We'll need a bigger bit for that. So this would be a great kit for a father and son project, or a grandson, or even a daughter and father, granddaughter and grandpa. I think it would be very enjoyable, and it would help to teach a child how engines work. Alright. Looks like we'll go ahead and give us a little bit of lube on there. Now, in the videos I watched, they used a syringe to do this with, and I did order some, but they have not come in yet, so we're just going to use this. Just a Q-tip works just fine. Now it's very, very small, intricate pieces. It's not like working on a big diesel engine. Oops. I mean, these are tiny. It's relaxing though after a really hot day and being outside all day in the heat. It's a lot of fun just to come in and sit and build a model of something that actually is functional. Whoops. opens freely. Looks good. All right. So we're going to go ahead and put our crankshaft and our piston in. We do have to put one of our bearings on here on the crank. So I got me a syringe. This isn't exactly what I wanted to use, but I'm going to use this to put a little oil in the cylinder here. Just going to work some around in there. There we go. Towel here real quick. We also need to put just a little bit of oil on our bearings. We'll just take them like this. And they do have little holes in them, so the oil will get down in there on the crank. We'll just force some oil down in that hole. Spin the bearing a little bit. Put some more down in there. This bearing, you can actually slide it over and actually get the crankshaft real good. This one has a brass gear pressed on already. Alright, those are oiled up. Get a little bit here on our piston itself. Now I'm just using 1540 Shell Rotella T diesel oil that we use in our big engines. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll get our piston started in our bore. And then we got to line up our little timing marks, which I got to find them. Oh, okay. It's 2 dots on the crank gear and 1 dot on the cam gear, basically. And you line up just like so. Now we can put our main caps on. So one goes on the right, one goes on the left. They are marked with little arrows. Just like so. Make sure I'm right. Just double check, never hurts to. Yep, we're right, because the ports go forward for the little oilers. Then we take our little screws we got here, and we're going to tighten them down. This little screwdriver isn't as good as the other one I've got. We got to remember that this is not a 12-hour a day engine. This is just a model, but it runs. So we will do our due diligence of getting it put together properly. Once we get this together, we'll make sure that it turns. Yep. Okay. Now on to our next step. Our next step is just simply threading in these 2 little oiler cups. One here and one here. Tighten them the best you can. All right. So the rod caps were held on by the 2.5 by 6 screws. Now the next screws we need are the 2 by 6, and them will actually hold on our flywheels. So we'll get all this laid out and ready to go on. So these are pretty simple. We just have these brass wedges that sit in there, and then we'll take our screws and we'll get them started. Got to get them straight so we're not cross threading them. There's one flywheel. We'll get the other one. This one has the governor that's part of it. Sit that in there. All right, those are ready. So our next step, we're actually going to mount the engine to its wooden frame. Here's its wooden frame. We're going to set it on like this. Fuel tank sits here in the front. And then we're going to get our base screws. They're labeled base screws. And there's pre-drilled holes that they correspond with. Just got to get them work through here a little bit. I apologize for the cricket that's here in the office. It's driving me crazy. If I could find it, I'd get rid of it. Well, I couldn't quite get that one tightened all the way in because I don't have the Allen wrench with the ball on the end to get it in, and I can't get my precision screwdriver down in there straight. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Have you a set of Allen wrenches with the ball tip on the end so you can get that in. I have another set, but I don't have them with me right now, so I'll have to bring those and tighten that. But we can move on to putting our flywheel. We'll start on this side. Go ahead and slide it on there, and we want it flush, it looks like by the instructions. So we want it about like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll tighten that in place. Follow the instructions, and we will put basically our pulley hub on if we were running a flat belt. But this is actually for the starter on this motor because you wrap the string around it. But in real life, that would be for a flat belt to run something with. Using the same 2x6 screws as we used on the, oops. Oh. That lined up. Help too if your screwdriver is magnetized also. There, I got one. All right, I'll get all these put in. So this is where it starts to get complicated. So first of all, you need to confirm that your timing marks are still lined up, which they are. Now we need to insert 3 of the small steel balls into this slot, and then we need to make sure that our counterweights on our flywheels line up and are 90 degrees. So that's where this gets a little bit complicated, but still not too bad. Still looks fairly easy. So let's do it. All right, so I put some white grease on the crankshaft, and I got the 3 little balls sitting in there. Now I need to put the governor together like so. This needs to slip over here like that. Now this is where it might be a little bit complicating to get this slid together all at once. So let's try to slide this on the crank first. Get that far. There we go. and we cannot knock our little balls out as we go. Get that started. There we go. Now, take our screwdriver. Just get that gently worked on there. And turn it a little bit. Going. There we go. There we go. All right. Then we have to space it with this spacing rod. We have to use this back there. Oops, didn't want to push that in yet. There. So now that we have our measuring rod in here and we've got everything spaced the way that we need it, before we lock this flywheel down, we need to get these flywheels and their counterweights 90 degrees to each other. Shows it in the book right here. They use a piece of flat wood. What I'm going to use is I'm just going to use a simple pencil, because I know a lot of you aren't going to have that little flat strip of wood laying around. So it's pretty simple. It's not really that complicated. Just put it across here and eyeball that pencil. I'm going to just line it up with the crankshaft itself where I can see it, and also the two arrows on the main caps for the crankshaft. That looks pretty good right there. Yeah, that looks good right there. We're going to go ahead and just tighten up our hub here. We want to be careful not to turn the flywheel. Oop. Well, it's locked enough now that, yeah, they're not spinning. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up, and then we'll move on. Now we're going to move on to our push rod. It's pretty simple to install this. We got a spring here that we got to get back in here. Get that worked in there. Just like so. And then that just threads in once we get it in there. There we go. Just got to keep working that in there. And that threads into a brass block. Just like so. So now that we got our push rod and all that in, now we got to put the rest of our governor together. So this piece has to go in behind the flywheel, and it goes into the governor itself. We need to line it up. And then we have to get this small pin in there, which we're going to use a pair of tweezers to get that in there, and that is a slotted head. So we'll use a small screwdriver with that, straight blade. So it's hard to see this on camera. There's a lot of small pieces to this. Get that worked in there where we need it. So the next step is the one that I've been waiting on the longest. We can put the head on. Head's got the valves in it ready to go. We put the O-ring in there, and then that flange needs to go up. Go ahead and set it like this. And we've got our screws ready to go here. This is a really cool project. Definitely, if you're a hands-on guy and you're looking for something to do in the evening for a little bit of stress relief, this is a project for you. You'll really enjoy it. Like I said, fathers and sons, grandpas and grandsons, it'd just be a great project to do. I'm having fun with it so far. Really enjoying it. It's just like the real thing, but miniature. Like I said, it was, well, I don't know if I mentioned it was a hot day today, and I was looking for something fun to do this evening in the cool. And this was a great project to pick. I highly recommend this. When I first came across these kits, I had my doubts on how can they make something so small that'll actually run. Well, don't let the smallness fool you. It's very, very precise how everything is made. It's amazing that things can be made this small. I highly recommend these kits from Sterling Kits. I wish I would have got one sooner. All right, we got our head on. Now I would say we're going to move on to put our rocker arm on. Yep, that's what it looks like to me. So we'll find that little package. Should be right here. We have some really small fasteners there. Figure out what we need to do, and we'll get that put together. Yep. Okay, so that is a little adjustable valve. So let me get that put together and we'll get it put on. So I've went as far as I can go tonight because I don't have a battery to plug in for the ignition. I have the batteries at my shop at home for my RC stuff, so it won't be a problem to get a battery, but I just don't have one with me right now. So I went ahead and I put the little fuel tank on. It just screws on with some brass straps here. Looks really nice, looks really authentic, looks just great. Love it. Really ties everything together. And then this box will sit back here eventually with the ignition stuff in it. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. It is pretty late, so I need to get home. I got a few things I need to do. And I told Madison I'd watch a movie with her this evening. So that's as far as we're going to go for now. And we'll continue on this project tomorrow evening. So I will get a battery and we will get it running. It runs on Zippo lighter fluid. So this will be interesting. Well, it's actually a couple days later. And we're going to try to start this. I've been kind of busy, and I had some other projects going on. So what I did for a battery is I'm using a M12 Milwaukee battery, and I've got one of these adapters to make it so that I can hook anything to it. That's what I'm going to use for power source. Turn it on. We've got our igniter. It was a pulse, whatever you want to call it, for our ignition. Basically, it acts like a magneto if this was a real hit and miss big motor. So plug wire, just as simple as stripping it back a little bit, shoving the rubber boot on it, poking it on the little spark plug, and then you just hook up your wires for your to trigger the spark. and then hook it up to your power source. Simple as that. And then you just have to put your little spade connector on your ground wire and hook it here by the exhaust. So now we've got ignition. Let's see if it'll start. See, it's got fire. If we can get a little bit of choke here. Oh. Now they do have the pull rope, but we're going to try to start it like the real thing. It's trying. Oh. Come on. Give it a little air. See, it's trying to fire. Well, let's use the drill. There we go. So it does run. I need to do a little tuning, but hey, it's running. Now that is cool. That is really cool. There we go. It runs. That is so cool. Definitely a fun project. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I'm going to be playing with this a lot more. And I'm going to be playing with a lot more of their little engines. This is really cool. So, hopefully you enjoyed this. It was a fun project. I want to thank Sterling Kits for sending me one. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Definitely really fun. Run it on Zippo lighter fluid. Use a little 1540 engine oil to lubricate it, which I got a little too much in there. But that's alright. Need to put a little on the rod. Wilson the cat, he's in here in the shop office. So that's why you hear him meow every now and then. So anyways, thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. We'll see you all in the next one. Have a good evening. I will put a link in the description below to this little engine if you would like to own one yourself.